Nico Hulkenberg, the man, the myth, the legend. What a driver. So if you did not know, after the Silverstone Grand Prix, Nico Hulkenberg officially now has a podium. After 239 starts without a podium to his name, he has officially done it. And in today's video, this is going to be a special all talking about Nico Hulkenberg and just how amazing of a driver he is. So I've got to talk about his stats before we head further into the video, and his stats just does not do him any justice at all. He very much is one of those drivers where you just don't understand how good he is as a driver if you look at his stats. You just have to watch his races, his season-long averages, and all of the above. Because guess what? If you looked at him right before that podium, it looks like he's just had 239 starts, 0 podiums, and he's a nobody. As he also had the longest amount of Grand Prix starts without a podium. He has the most amount of Grand Prix starts also without a win. His best finish was in 7th in 2018, and he's only managed 2 fastest laps in his career. Now, some would say he would never step foot on the podium, and I have to agree. Sadly, I did not think Nico Hulkenberg was getting on the podium anytime soon. But thank God he has done that, because now, since that has happened, he no longer is the driver with the most Grand Prix starts without a podium, because guess what? He has a podium to his name. Now who takes that spot is Adrian Sutil with 128 starts. And considering Adrian Sutil was around in the early 2010s, I'd be very surprised if he came back into F1 to get some more to try and get a podium. So I think Adrian Sutil very much is going to keep that for a little while. We shall see if anyone can come close to that. And to be fair to Nico Hulkenberg, it's not all sunshine and rainbows, because he still is the driver with the most Grand Prix starts without a win to his name. However, it is an upgrade to what we were talking about before, when it was very much he hasn't had a podium. At least he's got that now. Hopefully when Audi come in, I'd be surprised, but hopefully he can start looking at a win potentially. But the reason I talk about these stats and Nico Hulkenberg in general is because you just have to look at his stats alone this season to see what an incredibly talented driver he is, and why he has been so quintessentially important to the likes of Sauber, Force India, well, Sauber again, I guess, yeah. You name it, he has been important, because this season alone, he has outscored by himself Red Bull since the Spanish Grand Prix. Considering how good Max Verstappen is in that Red Bull, that means, guess what? He's also outscored Max Verstappen this entire time. He is also 9th in the Drivers' Championship this season, in arguably the worst car on average in the championship so far. And even though his teammate is a rookie of Gabriel Bortoleto, he has managed to score 37 points more than his teammate in that car. That is just incredible. And this is what I talk about with drivers like Nico Hulkenberg. Considering he's never had a chance to be in a championship car, he is fantastic at just getting you those points in a midfield team. He's experienced. He knows how to do it. He constantly gets top 10s. What a driver he is, and I can't believe Haas let him go. It was absolutely incredible. Sauber, what a still they have, and what a name to have going into Audi's first season for 2026. Hopefully, if he doesn't go anywhere else. But these constant great stats we've seen from this season, and these hard stats that he had to live with for his whole career in F1, he has had some close calls getting to that podium position before now. The likes of 2012 Brazil probably was his first proper good chance to get onto the podium, where he could have actually got the race win if everything went his way. At multiple points in that race was he winning the race. Now, he did have a spin letting Lewis Hamilton past, and it almost looked like he was about to re-overtake Lewis Hamilton for that race win. However, he, with multiple back markers around, made a mistake, and him and Hamilton collided. And by the time he got back onto the track, he had just picked up too much damage and was having to recover from that spin, and eventually he did not end up on the podium. Then there's been a few potential close calls up to then. However, the next proper good one we have to look at is 2016 Spa, where he actually started P6 and finished P4. But sadly for him, because Lewis Hamilton was just in such a much faster Mercedes, Lewis Hamilton, after Nico Hulkenberg had fended him off for quite a few laps, managed to get past to go into P3. Sadly for Nico Hulkenberg, that would end up him finishing P4. So close, but no cigar. And then finally, the other big one, the big three of his career so far, was the 2019 German Grand Prix. And my oh my, was that one hectic. Everyone was going off in Sector 3. And even though Nico Hulkenberg had dropped out of those podium positions, he wasn't actually in them. It was so crazy, and it was one of those races where if you were just in it, you were in it to win it. And sadly, he just could not keep it on the track, and he found his way into the gravel in his home crowd and ended up retiring from the race. And from 2019 onwards, it just did not look like it was ever going to happen. After that season, he actually got sacked by Renault in the hopes that Ricciardo and Ocon could do better, and he wasn't in F1 from 2020, 2021, 2022 technically, because he was in 2020 for 2 races, and 2022 were only one-offs in the COVID era when he had to replace one of the Racing Point drivers, and again Aston Martin in 2022 when there was issues there as well. But he wasn't in a full season for those 3 seasons, and honestly, if you told me in 2020, 2021, 2022 that Hulkenberg would get a podium in F1 still after he technically had retired from the sport, I would have thought you were pulling my leg, because at that point it sounded absolutely ridiculous that Hulkenberg would even come back onto the grid. And hey, it is such a shame that it even took this long for Hulkenberg to get a podium in F1. I mean, even in his first season in 2010, he took a pole position in Brazil. Sadly, he had set up the car for a wet qualifying, so the Williams just wasn't fast enough. He's always had talent. He's done well in the series before F1. I just don't know how he hasn't been picked up by an F1 team at the top rankings ever before. Because for me, I see him in the same light as a driver such as Sergio Perez. Sergio Perez very much was a midfield high-level driver, but at least Sergio Perez in 2013 had his chance with McLaren. It didn't work out, but at least he had that chance. He then had Red Bull at the end of his career. Again, it was brilliant for the first few seasons, but it ended up not working out later on. But Nico Hulkenberg, it just never happened. He was at Sauber, Force India, then to Racing Point for a few weekends, Renault, then back to Sauber. He was at Haas for a little bit. Just no team at the top really ever looked at him. And I really do think it does come down to those stats look worse than they are for Nico Hulkenberg. But that's exactly why I really hope what next is to come for him is better. Because at this point, we all know Sauber is being overtaken by Audi as a team. So we've got Cadillac is coming in, fresh new team, but Audi taking over the Kick Sauber team. And hey, Hulkenberg is going to be their big German name, and I really do hope Audi have at least in them to be slightly competitive, because Hulkenberg, he so deserves this. And hey, it does sound like a shot in the dark, considering even still, taking over from a team like Sauber, it'd take a lot from Audi to instantly for 2026 to be one of the better teams on the grid, so I don't expect it to happen anytime soon. But with the amount of money they can bring into the sport and the infrastructure around them, I definitely hope for 2027 maybe and onwards they can show a little bit more. And I just hope Hulkenberg can stay in that seat for long enough to reap these rewards. And hey, even at this point, there's rumours of him going to Red Bull, and I really do not hope this happens, because Red Bull is a disaster class at the minute. It's the way to ruin your career, and I really do think he would be exactly like Perez was in Red Bull, where the public would completely turn on him. So I do think at the minute, sadly, there's no room at the inn for McLaren. There's no room in Ferrari. There looks like there's probably going to be no room at Mercedes. Out of the top 4 big teams, it would be Red Bull. And realistically, I think he's got a better chance sticking at Audi getting a podium or a race win than he probably does at Red Bull. But like I mentioned earlier in a lot of my videos, and even in this video right now, Hulkenberg is just so consistent with getting those top 10s. And I feel like that is such a better stat and look at for him as a driver, because you got to remember he has never had a car that on merit technically is in the top 3 cars on the grid. And that's why his stats look so bad, But then you look at how well he's been consistently. His head-to-head stats with his teammates, he's always been around 50-50 with, and he's been in teams with the likes of Ricciardo, Perez, who aren't bad drivers. I mean, hey, even when he did do that few extra races and racing points, he picked up a couple of points, which weren't too shabby. And he now finds himself this season alone in a Sauber where he could be coming P8 in the championship, ahead of the second Red Bull driver, looking even potentially to beat Albon in the championship. It's just such a great season, and I really do hope that if he doesn't stick at Audi, which I'm 99% sure he will stick at Audi, I do hope it is a Perez situation where someone picks him up. But I just can't see where in the top teams it would be. Because even still, if Aston Martin's good in 2026, I don't think Hulkenberg's on their radar for a driver swap. So it's such a hard position for Hulkenberg. And I feel like this is what his entire career has been. He has been an outstanding driver, but there's always been someone who is slightly better or perceived to be slightly better who always gets the job instead. I mean, hey, there was even a chance that he went to Mercedes instead of Hamilton at one point, back in like the early 2010s, and it didn't happen because Hamilton wanted to go. So he's just been super unlucky, and it is just a massive what if in F1. What if he went to Mercedes? Would he have been able to compete with Nico Rosberg? Who knows? But it's just such an interesting career he's had, and thank God that he has got a podium to his name now, because if he had ended his F1 career without a podium, it would have been so disappointing to see. And finally, to end this video off, just to show how brilliant he has been in my eyes, especially this season, at least from the Spanish Grand Prix to Silverstone, I would say he has been the best driver on the grid. Better than Piastri, better than Norris, better than Verstappen, better than Russell, better than anyone else. He has been outstanding in this brief period of his career right now. And hey, even in the full season so far, I would put him in my top 3 drivers so far. But anyway, comment down below, what do you think of Nico Hulkenberg? Does he deserve a seat at a top constructor? Because at the minute, there just isn't room for him. Do you agree with me that he has been top 3, potentially maybe top 5 driver of the season so ffar? Has he been the best driver for you since the Spanish Grand Prix? All I know is I absolutely love this underdog story that he has had, and I'm not going to shut up about him having a podium anytime soon. So thank you all so much for watching. Take care, enjoy the rest of your day, and enjoy the rest of your week.